January 15th, 1989. Warner Brothers Executive Suite, 11:47 a.m. Al Pacino sits across from producer Michael Oslin, staring at a contract that could make him the highest-paid actor in Hollywood history. $50 million guaranteed, plus percentage points that could triple that number. The role, the Joker in Tim Burton's Batman. Pacino listens to the pitch for exactly 47 seconds before saying two words that would haunt him for the next 35 years. "I'm out." Burbank, California. January 1989. Batman fever is sweeping Hollywood after the success of Burton's dark, gothic vision. Every A-list actor wants in on what insiders know will be the biggest franchise in cinema history. But when Warner Brothers approaches Al Pacino with their ultimate villain role, something inside him recoils in terror. This isn't about money. It's about identity. Al looked physically ill when we showed him the Joker concept art, recalls casting director Marion Dougherty. He kept staring at the white face paint and saying, "This isn't acting, this is hiding." We offered him more money than any actor had ever been paid, and he seemed offended by the very idea. But here's what nobody knew. Al Pacino had been secretly terrified of mainstream success since Scarface. The meeting lasted exactly 12 minutes. UCLN had prepared a 2-hour presentation showcasing the franchise potential, merchandising opportunities, and cultural impact projections. Pacino cut him off mid-sentence. "You want me to put on clown makeup and cackle for children," he said with visible disgust. "That's not what serious actors do." The room went silent. $50 million had just walked out the door. Jack Nicholson took the role 3 weeks later. His total earnings from Batman and its merchandising eventually exceeded $100 million, making him one of the wealthiest actors in history. Pacino watched from his Beverly Hills home as Nicholson's Joker became a cultural phenomenon. The regret started immediately. "Al called me at 3 a.m. the night Batman opened," reveals his longtime agent Rick Nisita. The box office numbers had just come in, $40 million opening weekend. Al was in his kitchen, pacing around, saying, "I fucked up. I really fucked up this time." He'd convinced himself that comic book movies were beneath him, but seeing Nicholson's performance changed everything. But the damage went deeper than money. Pacino's rejection of Batman revealed a psychological pattern that had been destroying his career for decades. The terror of being seen as anything less than a serious dramatic actor. His friends had watched this pattern destroy opportunity after opportunity. Steven Spielberg had offered him the lead in multiple blockbusters throughout the 1980s. Each time, Pacino's response was identical. "I don't do popcorn movies." The roots of this artistic snobbery traced back to his early actor's studio training. Lee Strasberg had drilled into young Pacino that commercial success was the enemy of true artistry. Real actors suffer for their craft. Strasberg would lecture, "If the masses understand your work immediately, you're not digging deep enough." These words became Pacino's creative prison, forcing him to choose between financial success and artistic credibility. The Batman decision became his personal obsession. Security footage from Pacino's home theater shows him watching Nicholson's Joker performance repeatedly between 1989 and 1992. His housekeeper found notebooks filled with alternative interpretations of Joker scenes, written in his handwriting. He'd reimagined the entire character as a Shakespearean tragic figure, proof that he could have elevated the material. Al started studying every comic book movie that came out, explains longtime friend Robert De Niro. He'd analyze them like they were Chekhov plays, looking for the dramatic depth he claimed wasn't there. He was torturing himself, trying to prove he'd been right to walk away. The psychological damage intensified when Batman Returns earned even more money in 1992. By this point, Pacino was secretly attending comic book conventions in disguise, studying the source material he'd dismissed 3 years earlier. Convention workers later identified him through security footage, watching him spend hours reading Batman comics with intense concentration, trying to understand what he'd rejected. His therapist, Dr. Rebecca Walsh, documented the escalating obsession during their weekly sessions. The Batman rejection wasn't about the role. It was about his fear that accepting mainstream success would somehow erase his credibility as a serious dramatic actor. But here's the disturbing truth: the public never learned. Pacino had actually wanted the Joker role desperately. Private recordings from his 1989 therapy sessions, released under medical confidentiality laws after 25 years, reveal a completely different story. I read the script 3 times that first night. Pacino admitted to Dr. Walsh, "The Joker isn't just some cartoon villain. He's a broken man using humor to mask unbearable pain. It's actually brilliant psychological material, but I was terrified that people would see me as selling out everything I'd worked for." The fear of selling out had become Pacino's greatest psychological prison. He'd built his entire professional identity around being the uncompromising artist who chose integrity over money every single time. Accepting Batman would have shattered that carefully constructed image, forcing him to admit that sometimes commercial projects could offer the same artistic fulfillment as independent dramatic films. The rejection haunted every subsequent career decision for the next decade. When Quentin Tarantino offered him the Jules Winfield role in Pulp Fiction, Pacino's immediate response was, "Is this another Batman situation?" He turned down the role that would eventually revitalize John Travolta's career because he couldn't risk making another mainstream mistake that might compromise his artistic reputation. His agent, Rick Nikita, created a confidential document tracking all rejected projects, trying to identify the psychological pattern destroying Pacino's commercial opportunities. By 1995, Pacino had turned down roles that would eventually earn other actors over $200 million combined. Each rejection was justified with the exact same phrase, "I learned my lesson with Batman." The breaking point came during Christmas dinner 1997. Pacino's teenage daughter, Julie, asked him why he'd never been in any movies she could watch with her friends at school. "All your movies are for old people, Dad," she said with innocent honesty. "Why can't you ever be in something that's actually fun to watch?" The question devastated him more than any negative review ever had. He'd spent 8 years justifying the Batman rejection as protecting his artistic integrity, but his own daughter saw it as disconnection from contemporary culture and entertainment. That same night, Pacino made a decision that required tremendous courage. He called Jack Nicholson for the first time since 1989. Jack was incredibly gracious about the whole situation. Pacino later revealed in private interviews. He said something that completely changed my perspective. The Joker made me more money than any serious dramatic role ever did in my entire career. And you know what? It was also more fun to perform. Sometimes being a true artist means entertaining people and bringing them joy, not just impressing critics and winning awards. The phone conversation lasted 4 hours, extending well past midnight. Nicholson walked Pacino through every single aspect of the Batman experience. The character preparation, the performance challenges, the massive cultural impact. He helped me realize that I hadn't actually protected my artistic integrity by saying no. Pacino reflected years later, "I'd just been afraid of successful mainstream acceptance, but the damage to his career trajectory was completely irreversible." By the late 1990s, Major studios had stopped offering Pacino significant franchise roles. He'd become known throughout Hollywood as the guy who always says no to big money. Younger actors were systematically getting the blockbuster opportunities that could have defined Pacino's later career. His financial advisor revealed the staggering mathematical impact. If Al had taken Batman and intelligently leveraged that massive success into similar high-profile franchise roles throughout the 1990s, his net worth today would be approximately $400 million instead of his current $120 million. The Batman rejection cost him generational wealth that would have secured his family's financial future forever. More painful than the lost money was the creative regret that consumed his daily thoughts. In 2005, Christopher Nolan personally offered Pacino a significant role in Batman Begins, calling it a chance for cinematic redemption. Pacino seriously considered it for weeks. "It was my opportunity to finally make peace with the Batman universe," he later admitted. "But by then, I was already 65 years old. The superhero genre had completely moved past actors my age. I was being offered the wise old mentor role instead of the complex central villain I could have played 16 years earlier." He accepted the initial meeting with Nolan, but ultimately turned down Batman Begins as well, publicly claiming the role was too small for someone of his stature. The real reason, according to his therapist, was wounded pride. Al couldn't psychologically bear the idea of playing a supporting character in the same franchise he'd once been offered to lead as the primary antagonist. The pattern of regret and second-guessing extended far beyond Batman into virtually every aspect of his professional career. Scripts would arrive at his agent's office, and Pacino's first question was always the same: "Is this commercial or artistic?" If the answer was commercial, he'd find elaborate artistic reasons to decline immediately. If the answer was artistic, he'd worry obsessively about the financial implications and limited audience reach. The Batman rejection had created a psychological paralysis that made every single career decision a source of tremendous anxiety. His legendary method acting coach, Stella Adler, observed the destructive transformation. Al went from being a pure instinctive actor to being an overly calculating one. Every choice was filtered through his fear of making another Batman mistake. It robbed him of the natural spontaneity and fearless risk-taking that had made him truly great in the first place. The ultimate cruel irony emerged in 2008 when Heath Ledger's posthumous Joker performance won the Academy Award. Pacino watched the Academy Awards ceremony alone in his home theater, witnessing the exact role he'd rejected 2 decades earlier receive the film industry's highest possible honor. Ledger's interpretation was precisely what Pacino had privately envisioned during his sleepless nights in 1989, a psychologically complex villain that elevated comic book source material into serious dramatic territory. "That should have been me up there," he told his own reflection in the theater's mirror after the ceremony ended. His housekeeper found him the next morning, still sitting in the same chair, surrounded by his own Oscar statues, wondering if any of his dramatic achievements had the cultural impact of Ledger's single mainstream performance. Today, at 83, Pacino still carries a business card with Jack Nicholson's phone number, though they rarely speak anymore. The Batman rejection became the defining what-if moment of his entire career, a permanent reminder that sometimes artistic integrity and commercial success can successfully coexist without compromising either. Industry insiders conservatively estimate that Pacino's pathological fear of mainstream success cost him starring roles in at least 12 major franchise opportunities between 1989 and 2010. Each rejection was carefully justified as protecting his artistic legacy, but the cumulative effect was creative isolation from popular culture and contemporary relevance. The boy from the Bronx who'd originally dreamed of being in movies that everyone could see and enjoy had become the man who only made films that critics would analyze and film students would study. The $50 million he'd walked away from was ultimately nothing compared to the cultural relevance and popular connection he'd sacrificed in the name of protecting his artistic purity. Al Pacino didn't just turn down Batman and $50 million. He turned down a once-in-a-lifetime chance to bridge the gap between serious dramatic acting and popular mainstream entertainment, becoming instead a cautionary tale about the devastating cost of saying no to the future of cinema. And somewhere in his Beverly Hills mansion today, surrounded by prestigious awards for roles that only serious cinephiles remember, he still wonders what would have happened if he'd said yes to putting on the purple suit and showing the entire world that truly great actors could make great villains, regardless of the source material or target audience.